The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everybody. Good morning to all listening from Europe, and good afternoon to those who are joining us in China. Welcome to our European SME Week webinar series. My name is Fei Ye. I'm a senior consultant in the business development team of the EU SME Centre here in Beijing. In the past 2 days, our experts have discussed selling online in China and how to avoid common scams when doing business in China, be it online or offline. And today, we are moving forward to the next very important step, how to market it right in China. In a moment, I'm going to pass the microphone to our marketing expert, Mr. Simon Stewart, who will be your presenter today. And for now, just a quick reminder. Today's webinar will last about 45 minutes. At the end, we have allocated time for Q&A. Please feel free to use the panel on your screen to post questions throughout the webinar. And just in case we don't have time to cover your question, we will get back to you after the webinar via email. And we will also distribute the slides to you and upload them on our webpage. With that, we're moving to today's topic, marketing in China. Mr. Simon Stewart is Director of Business Advisory at China-Britain Business Council. He has rich experience advising international firms in China to find the right market and right strategy. And Simon is joining us from Shanghai today. Hi, Simon. Hello there.
Hi there. Hi there.
Hi, Simon. It's freezing cold here in Beijing. How are you in Shanghai?
It is still cold, but not as cold as Beijing.
Okay. Well, the floor is yours.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Good morning to those of us who are joining us in the EU, and afternoon to those in China. As Faye just mentioned, my name is Simon Stewart, and I spent the past 8 years in China helping international companies, most of those are SMEs, enter and be successful in the China market. So today we're going to be discussing successful marketing in China. We're going to look at the key points that SMEs need to be considering as they enter and develop in the market, and share some case studies, some successful stories of European companies that have been successful in the China market, and look at what they did differently to make them successful here. So if we look at the agenda slide right there, we're going to look at a number of key considerations. The first key consideration is focus. SMEs that are really successful here are able to focus on a geographical area where they will be most successful, and they're able to focus on a particular market segment that that they will get their best return, and they will be able to develop the best relationships. We're going to move on and talk about the marketing mix and how European small to medium enterprises adapt their marketing mix to get their proposition right for the China market. We're going to talk briefly about social media and using social media here, because it is slightly different and there are some important considerations to look at. And finally, we're going to think about some next steps from your business, and hopefully you'll be able to listen to some key stories and key tips that you can apply to your business as you create a marketing-led strategy for your company in China. So if we could flick to the next slide. Before I wanted to launch into the presentation in earnest, I just wanted to clarify exactly what we mean by marketing. Many companies that come to me and talk to me about marketing like to focus on marketing communications or branding. So whilst that is an important part of marketing, it is just one part of marketing. Successful marketing in China means putting the customer as the focal point of everything that you do, every decision that you make, and it affects every part of your business. And in the context of China, of course, it means adapting your business to make the China customer as the focal point. The second part of marketing, which is very important in all markets, but especially in China, is the creation of long-term win-win relationships between your business and clients and stakeholders and different organizations within the China market. Why look at these two factors? Because the successful EU SMEs that work in China are the ones that are marketing-led businesses that adapt for their Chinese customer and create long-term win-win relationships. So let's look at that in a little bit more detail. Let's go on to the next slide and look at what type of win-win relationships we need to be focusing on in terms of being successful in China. Well, the first thing that you really need to look at is looking at your niche customer. Many companies that come into China are looking to get that 1% of the China market that will make them successful and give them a good return. In fact, the really successful European companies that work in China are the ones that really focus on a small niche market and understand how the Chinese consumer behavior is different in that particular niche and how they can apply their business to fulfilling the needs of that niche market. So creating win-win relationships with a specific market segment is very important. Another aspect of win-win relationships is very important in China is developing and working with partners. Now these partners could be agents, they could be distributors, or they could be different organizations in China that act as your advocate to help you promote in the market. China is geographically very far from Europe. It's also very different in terms of business culture and business behavior. So creating long-term and deep relationships with a number of business partners and maintaining those relationships are an essential part on making sure that you develop a sustainable business over time and to make sure that they continue to support you as you develop in the China market. And one other element of relationship business which is really very specific to the China market is building a relationship with the Chinese government and understanding the direction that the Chinese government wants to go in terms of your particular industry and your particular market segment. We find that the SMEs that understand what direction the Chinese government wants to go in terms of growing the country and growing the economy, the SMEs that move with the tide of where the government is going are the companies that get most opportunities and most doors open. Those who don't understand where the Chinese government is going tend to find it more difficult to get traction in the market. And that's especially the case if you're an SME that works in industries which are dominated by state-owned industries. These large Chinese state-owned industries, because their buyer behavior, the actions that they take, is often dominated and regulated by the government policy of the day. So when you're approaching the China market, remember to think long-term win-win relationships with your market, customer market niche, with the partners that are going to help you create a channel to your customer and give you information on your customer, and also with the Chinese government at both a national and potentially provincial level. So if we can just go to the next slide and we can start looking in a little bit more detail about how to approach China. I think one key consideration for SMEs as they come into the China market is where they're going to focus their attention geographically. You have to understand that China is a very large and very diverse country, and it is often said that China is like a continent with many different markets inside of it, these different markets with different buyer behavior, with different types of trends, rather than a market as a whole. And there is a report which analyzes many of these markets, and I'll give you the link to that at the end of the presentation. So if we move on to the next slide now, we can take a look at some of the differences between the different markets within the country of China as a whole. These tend to be grouped into two main categories. The first tier markets are markets that you've probably heard of, markets like Shanghai, markets like Beijing, markets like Shenzhen. And these are the more developed markets that you would find. You may have come and traveled to China and visited some of them. However, there are other also interesting markets that are grouped as regional cities. So those are the markets in China that are the emerging markets, markets that you may or may not have heard of, cities like Chengdu and Chongqing and Wuhan and Hangzhou. These are markets which are still very interesting in terms of development, in terms of opportunities, but are not quite as well known as markets such as cities such as Shanghai and Beijing. So what are the differences between these two markets? Well, the first tier markets like Shanghai and Beijing are very developed. They have very sophisticated customers because they have more international exposure. And they're easier to do business because they have more established, more developed talent pool, and they have more international standardized procedures. However, these markets are not always the best ones to enter in because they are highly competitive with both international and Chinese companies there. The costs are very much higher in terms of setting up business here, and they're very crowded. So it's difficult to make your mark if you don't have a lot of resources to bring to bear. The regional cities outside the smaller markets, these are growing emerging markets, and they're more open. The government, the authorities are a little bit more open to new businesses coming in. They're less competitive, and they aspire to be like the Shanghais and the Beijings of this world. Of course, there are drawbacks to regional cities. They are less developed, they're less international. Management can be more challenging, more cultural elements you have to deal with, and there can be less wealth and prosperity there as it develops. So if we move on to the next slide, I just want to give you an example of one company and how it approached its market development in the context of choosing a particular market or a particular city to enter in. Grumnage is a Dutch company that specializes in the green tech sector, so it's a sector which is very much encouraged in China. And they identified pretty quickly that there were very large infrastructure projects happening across China. And there are infrastructure projects which were available in the first-tier cities like Shanghai and Beijing. But those cities were actually quite difficult to get entrance in. So what Grumnage did, they focused their time and energy and their resources into a regional city, Wuhan, that you can see there on the slide in the center. So this is still a city of approximately 8 or 9 million people, and it's an area where they can develop. But what Grumnage were able to do is, because they focused, it's because they were very clear on spending their time and resources on this particular area, they were able to build deep relationships with the government, their deep relationships with their partners, really understand what their customers were trying to do, and they were able to win projects in this particular area of China, in Wuhan. And once they had that project, once they completed that project, once they had a China-specific project that they could go and promote and market, then they were able to establish themselves more easily in first-tier markets like Shanghai and Beijing. And now Grumnage are a very successful company winning projects across China, and not just in the regional cities. So the important element to think about is, in terms of regional cities, is to focus on a particular area and to really research where the best area is for you, for your business. Research in China and in focus is absolutely key. So if we can go on to the next slide. Once that you've understood exactly where you want to look geographically, it is, of course, important to look at your marketing mix, the second part of what we're going to discuss today, and how you need to adapt and localize your market mix for the China market. I have many companies that come with a very, very high spec premium product that they wish to sell in the China market, but often they sometimes find it challenging because they find that consumers here do not behave in the same way as consumers back in their core markets, and therefore they find it difficult to get traction in the market. Of course, a marketing-led approach means that you start with the Chinese customer first, and you start to really understand exactly what they want to do in terms of what they're looking for in terms of product, in terms of where they want to buy it, the price they want to pay, how they wish to be promoted to, what types of promotion works for them, and the people, the process, and the physical environment. So you'll notice in the blue there the 7 Ps, which are very famous about marketing. And in China, of course, you need to add an extra P, which is partnerships, because like I said at the start of the presentation, you need to be able to create win-win relationships and understand what your partners want to do and how you can help your partner help you market your products in China and be an advocate for you in China in the short, medium, and long term. So again, what we're going to do, rather than go through the P's one by one, we're going to take some case studies, particularly of some European companies that have been particularly successful in the China market, and to understand exactly what they did differently to be successful in the market. And the company that I would like to highlight that we think did particularly well in this particular area is Gronel. It's an Italian technical mountain boots manufacturer. And what Gronel were able to do is they were a good example of a customer that really focused on a niche market segment. So there are many retailers in China, and many of the large department stores like Decathlon and many of the sports retailers, they're all in China and available for companies to approach. But what Gronel did was they really focused on the urban outdoor enthusiasts, the people in China that really enjoy getting out of the big city and exploring the outdoors, and will use Gronel products to do that. So they focused on this niche market segment. And what that allowed them to do is it allowed them to really use their limited time and resources most effectively by focusing on this particular market segment. They were able to go to very targeted trade shows and use targeted distributors that would help them focus on really driving their products. Trade shows are very important in China. You may or may not use them as a means of gaining information in the UK, understanding customers or understanding competitors. But the culture in China is very much one of building relationships and getting to know people. So trade shows and specific trade shows that focus on your customer can be a very effective way of promoting your brand, connecting with people, understanding people's reaction to your product and what prices people are willing to pay. And it's also a very effective way of understanding what your competition is doing in terms of the pricing and in terms of the product that they are building. And so Gronel used trade shows as an effective means of connecting with the particular industry, but it also used different means of promotions. One of those would be the using the social media, and because they're focused, they're able to really understand what type of social media that their customers use. And what they did was they identified opinion formers in their particular industry that they could use to help them to promote the brand and promote how Gronel were different. Gronel had some particular USPs. It was an imported product at that time. They promoted very heavily on Made in Italy, which has a lovely reputation here in China. They were handmade products, so that kudos of the handmade, made in Italy boot was something that many Chinese consumers wanted to buy and wanted to show to their friends. But they didn't just rest on having that strong type of branding message. They invested a lot of time in training and educating the channel, training and educating them on how to communicate the brand, how to communicate particularly the specifications of the product that they have, so that when they communicated to customers on Gronel's behalf, they were very well versed in the types of messages that they could deliver to make Gronel successful in China. And the final point that I'll make on Gronel, and it is a very important point and often a point that people take for granted, is that they localized their products for the China market. So they identified that the sizes and the particular colors and the specifications for China were different to the types of sizes that they would need in their core markets back at home. Localization is a critical part of being successful in the China market. So that's a little bit of an example of a business-to-consumer type of company that's been successful, and the types of activities that they were engaged in to be successful.
Simon, I'm sorry to interrupt you here. Well, this is really a good example that this company has used very systematic and successful marketing strategy for the access to China. I was wondering whether you know that did they engage a marketing agency to help them, or did they do this all by themselves?
I think that with the specific answer to Gronel, I don't know, but I can share experiences from other companies. They tend to use agencies for a number of reasons. First of all, there's a language reason for that. So in terms of communicating with clients, that needs to be in Mandarin. Your brochures need to be in Mandarin. Your messages need to be in Mandarin. And in terms of managing social media, that also needs to be done in Mandarin as well. So it really is a partnership between the EU company that really knows the product and really knows the expertise, and partners in China, maybe marketing partners in China that really can help you communicate with clients in a way that really resonates with them. And there are many companies that you can use, not just the big companies that are expensive, but there are smaller companies as well that can help.
Thank you, Simon. I guess in the later slides we're also going to introduce some helpful resources where to find this specialized agencies.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we can go into the next slide, which that's very much a business-to-consumer slide. But I also wanted to pick up on a business-to-business type of example for the people listening. And I focus on Weinmann Medical Technology to really take a look at perhaps some of the differences on a B2B question. The question that you raised in terms of whether they used marketing agencies for Gronel, I'll answer the question also in the context of Weinmann. Many business-to-business companies don't like to use marketing agencies so much in terms of what they do, because if you look at medical technology, the language and the way that you communicate is so specific and it's so detailed. It's very difficult for a marketing generalist to be able to articulate the messages and the technology, anything over above simple benefits. So many of the business-to-business customers that I work with, they do work with their distributors and partners to try and get them to help with some of the translation. And that may be part of the win-win agreement that you want to think about when you take your EU company and make it successful in China. So if you look at Weinmann, they are very successful. Again, they did follow the golden rules of focusing on a particular niche market that was successful for them. And the interesting thing about this case is that many of their competitors actually had more specifications, more different types of facilities on their equipment. But Weinemann decided that we aren't going to put lots of specifications on our equipment. We're going to just put the specifications which our Chinese customers want. So not the highest spec at the highest price, but the specifications that our Chinese customers want at a price that they are willing to pay. And they created unique designs with a quality that they would pay for, and still absolutely at a premium level price compared to certainly the local competitors and competitive prices in terms of international competitors. And I think that with a company like this, what I mentioned in terms of creating a win-win relationship in terms of government direction, if we're thinking about healthcare in that particular sector, that's an area that the Chinese government is very interested in developing and interested in guiding. There are lots of Chinese state-owned industries there. So companies like Weinemann, what they do is they really understand the direction that the government want to go, both at a national and a provincial level, and they try and help businesses move forward towards their goals in terms of creating an effective healthcare system for China. And what Weinemann did, actually, they entered into clinical research partnerships with partners that they identified in China to help them develop research for the China market. So Weinemann are helping their Chinese partners in terms of research, and of course the Chinese partner is helping them develop their business and get the right relationships at the right level that they need in the China market. So again, it comes back to thinking creatively about what you can deliver to the market and what you can get in return, and creating the win-wins that will help you be successful here. And in the terms of healthcare, and I've seen many companies in healthcare or in chemicals, they really do try and increase their network and leverage their network and build as many advocates as they can for their product by educating them about, not just about their products, but about well-being and about medical best practice, and developing partnerships in that way. And when they work and they help people develop in the way that they want to develop, they find that they create a network of advocates for their brand and their business in the China market. So business to business is very much about really creating that network, educating and helping people to work in that particular way. So if we go on to the next slide, we can talk a little bit about social media. Interestingly, the three cases that we focused on there, they all use social media in different ways. I think the important thing to understand about social media in China is that it's very, very widely used. You'll see from the slide there, reportedly, about 250 million social media users in China. Facebook and Twitter is restricted, so maybe some of the channels that you use in core markets, they won't be as accessible here as they would be at home. However, interestingly, LinkedIn is available. So there are, I think, approximately 2 million Chinese users of LinkedIn. So you can quite cost-effectively create a page there for you to allow people to connect and learn about social media, about your products and your brand in China. And of course, there are many different types of specifically Chinese and Chinese language social media applications that can be used. Some of those at the bottom of the screen, you see some of the more famous ones, but there are a plethora of different types of applications that could be used here. That is merely a small selection. So if we go on to the next slide.
Simon, sorry, just to interrupt you.
Sure.
Some of the participants are telling us that you are breaking up a little bit, so the audio quality might be due to we're presenting from two different places. Could you please try to speak slowly, a little slowly, and
Sure.
closer to the mic? Thank you.
Sure, no problem. So yes, just to reiterate, we are looking at social media in China, about 250 million recorded users of social media in China. Facebook and Twitter are restricted, but LinkedIn is available, and there are many Chinese applications and social media outlets that can be used with Mandarin usage. So let's take a look at some China social media tips, or some of the aspects that people need to take into consideration when using social media in China. Well, first of all, the strength of social media is very, very large. When people consume products in China, they will often check on social media to see if there have been any comments or any more information that they can get on the purchase, and that could be business to consumer or it can be business to business. They will often actually trust the feedback and the opinions of consumers that have posted opinions on social media more than they will trust other forms of media, and more than they will often trust brands. So managing social media is a very important part of being successful in the China market. So some of the things that you need to be mindful of in terms of social media, like the example before, really focus your target customers when you're doing your market research. Ask about social media. Ask about what channels they respect, your customers respect, and what they use to communicate information and find out information on particular products and particular services. You can use opinion formers to try and influence and to try and give information, or even more effectively, you can create opportunities for customers and stakeholders to engage with you and to share your information. So it's very often in food and beverage that companies try to encourage customers to share information with their friends, with their network, on the types of food and beverage products that people like to try and people like to share. So engage with that community, find ways of influencing that community, and find ways of getting them to share your brand and share your product with their friends and with their networks. And I think that the only caveat, of course, that we have in terms of communications and social media is that when social media is positive, then that's a great thing, and that will strengthen your brand and your ability to market and sell in China. But when it's not positive, it needs to be managed very, very carefully. So the first aspect that people need to think about is, first of all, don't go onto social media maybe straight away. Get your market research done correctly. Get your focus groups done first, and get your opinions formed first, and then with an educated mind enter into social media. Many people do like to use partners to help them manage social media, Chinese-speaking partners that have the time to track and to monitor and to help form opinion. And there are EU SMEs that actually choose to employ a Chinese graduate from a European university actually to help them manage social media, or to help them manage your partner in China, or to help research the market using their Mandarin skills. There are a great many young Chinese people that go to European universities to study, and it's a great win-win for both the student coming out of the Chinese student coming out of university and SMEs to employ somebody first of all to help understand the market, understand where they can focus, manage and understand partners, and also look at how you can effectively use social media in China. So finally, if we just flick on to the next slide, the penultimate slide. And just to summarize what really European SMEs can be thinking about doing in China. Well, the first short-term aspect of what you're doing is to do your initial marketing research. The companies that market research well, that understand where their market niche is, understand what geography that they need to be focusing on, and can create a value proposition which is right in the first time, are more successful and have less trouble and are able to use their limited resources most effectively. So market research as an initial start is a core way of being successful in the China market, and it will help you be a marketing-led company in the China market. So in the medium term, that's when you really need to be starting investing and developing and spending time with your partners and with the relationships. You'll notice in the case studies that I gave, many of them invest a lot of time coming out and spending time with their partners, educating them about the brand, educating them about the products, and helping them become a real advocate for your brand and your business in China, and also ensuring that, to be honest, that they are prioritizing your product in terms of marketing and sales, and not perhaps some of the other products that they are representing in terms of marketing and sales. So there is a lot to be said of coming out to China and developing relationships with people there, and also, if you can, to get your partners to come back to Europe and to really understand and strengthen and deepen the relationship that you have with your partners there. And then, in the longer term, then you're really starting to look at developing a sustainable and profitable growth in China. In the longer term, you'll have started small, you'll have started in a niche, you'll have started in a particular geography, you will have found what really works in China, you'll have developed the relationships, and then you'll be in a much, much stronger position to grow your business, to be more aggressive, and to grow at a pace that you know is right for your business. And that will help you develop and grow in a sustainable, in an effective, and in a safe way in the China market. So if we could just go on to the final slide, what I wanted to do is to leave you with some essential resources, which are really great resources for finding information and increasing your network in China. The top one there, obviously, is the EU SME Centre. It's got a great collection of reports which are available. There is a marketing report on the EU SME Centre website as well that you can look at. You've got your chambers of commerce and your embassy and consulate trade teams that can connect you with people here. And finally, at the bottom there, you've got China-Britain Business Council. At the bottom, you've got a regional cities report. So when I mentioned the regional cities discussion earlier on in the presentation, there is a report available, publicly available, on the CBBC website, which does talk about regional cities that can give you some guidance on perhaps where you can start first. And so with that, I'd like to thank you for your time and attention, and pass it back to Faye to see if we have any questions from the people listening in today.
Thank you, Simon. I hope you get a chance to have a sip of water while I read out the questions to you, as we do have quite a few.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a question from Daniel. Daniel is asking whether you can share a case and successful factors of a company who introduced a new brand or additional one to its main brand to penetrate into the mid-market. And actually, we have a few more questions from Martin also on the existing case study you've shared on Grano. Basically, Martin is asking for, for Grano, how successful are they, and how long did they develop the marketing strategy and to enjoy the success? I guess I will try, in the interest of time, I will try to answer the question on behalf of Simon. Actually, the EU SME Centre will be publishing a very comprehensive marketing sector report with many excellent examples and case studies in the coming months. And I believe those case studies will answer both of your questions here. And I would encourage you to register on our website and subscribe to our newsletter so you won't miss it. And okay, so I will move to the next question. This is a question from Ivy. How could we analyze the market in China? And if we have a product, how could we know that it's going to be popular in China?
Yeah, some great questions there. I'll take the last one first. How do we analyze and how do we know if our product is really going to work in China? I think that I think it's very difficult to do from your current markets at home. The companies that come out to China are the ones that really get to know and see their customers first. We get a lot of companies that come out on trade missions. So what trade missions are is they're organized often by European consulates. It's a group of companies that come out together to go to a particular exhibition, say, or a particular trade show. So you may have trade organizations that you work with that do missions to China. And the great thing about that is that if you go as a group, you're able to not just learn from in China, but you're able to learn from other companies that are going out there and learn from their experience. If you go to a trade show, you can actually talk to people, you can see what products are being successful there, and you can talk to people about, first of all, you can talk to people more generally about that particular industry and what types of problems they have in that industry and what types of solutions they're looking for in terms of that industry, and get that feedback to understand what kind of challenges your customers are having, and then bring in the products and say, is this something that you would that would work for you? So you can do that. You can do that on your own. You can do that as part of a trade mission. I am a marketing research person, so I would honestly advise people to get a company in China to try and do some market research for you, at least to be able to connect you with some companies that have experience in your market niche, and to give you some idea, to connect you with the companies, give you some idea of the government direction, to give you some idea of how you're working, how you can work in China, how you can be successful in China, and to lend from their experience. So that's those are our three particular ways that you can do that. But I do recommend that if you can, is to come out in China and spend the time. Any money that you spend up front on coming out to China and in marketing research, you will save in the long term.
Thank you, Simon. Let's rush to the next question. Maybe we have just time for this one last question. So which marketing tools have you found to be most effective in China?
I think the marketing tools that I found to be most effective in China are in terms, I think that's the social media. I think when used effectively, can be an excellent and cost-effective way of telling your brand story and of developing your brand in China. I have to say that we work a lot with trade shows and getting out and working, finding partners through them, and understanding the market through trade shows and finding companies there and seeing your competitors and seeing the prices that they're pricing at. So in terms of a business-to-business context, the trade shows really are very, very active here, and a lot of SMEs find them very, very useful.
Okay, thank you, Simon. As I've said, well, although we have received many good questions today, we won't have time to cover each single one of them, but we will get back to you via email after the webinar. And with that, as we are coming to the end of the presentation, many of you have been following us for some time. For those of you who are new to our center, just a quick introduction that we are set up by the European Union to support EU SMEs to access China. And we provide information services free of charge, and a lot of this very practical information can be accessed through our website. You can post questions and even schedule one-on-one consultations with us through our website. And also we are organizing training in both online and on the ground in China and Europe. So do visit our event page and check which events are coming up in your area. And to stay connected, you can follow us on social media, and don't forget to sign up for our newsletter. Thank you again for your sharing, Simon, and thank you all of you for joining. As you log off, you'll be asked to fill in a very short survey. We do welcome your valuable feedback and suggestion, and so thank you for filling that out. We hope to see you at tomorrow's webinar, where our expert will provide very practical advice on how to find agent and distributor in China. And goodbye for now.